Hey guys, so I feel like super burnout this week. I'm like, I can't do another episode. I have to generate content. I'm like, I don't want to do anything. So I've been playing a little video game, which doesn't help at all. Video games do not help at all with generating content. Though it's cool to kill things with a sword. I'm using a claymore right now. If you played Dark Souls 3, you'll know where to find it. Anyways, it's right in the second area. Like, you have to go run through fire and stuff, and you'll die. But don't worry, it's Dark Souls, so you die. On top of video games, I've been reading this stuff called hermeneutics, which is the science of interpretation. It's not a science, but the hermeneuts, which was what they're called. I'm going to call myself this now. I'm not a critic, I'm a hermeneut. I interpret things. I don't just go around criticizing things. My job, my duty, my goal, my ambition is to interpret things, to explain and understand what's going on underneath the surface of all these different things that I'm talking about, namely evergreen. Then I had an idea. And I was driving the thing that I drive. While I was driving the thing that I drive, I had this idea. I'm like, and it fit together with what I was hearing at Evergreen. One of the things that I heard at Evergreen, well, two things that I've heard at Evergreen, was one, disparagement of this stuff called, or this thing called meritocracy. And meritocracy, I'm going to slaughter this definition. You guys in the comments can correct me. Meritocracy is giving power to people or rewarding people based on their merit, right? Those who apply themselves and who prove themselves capable in different ways will be able to do certain things. So the engineer who we hire, we're going to hire based on their merit. And the scholar that we're going to listen to based on their merit. And at Evergreen, and in these different diversity workshops and anti-oppression workshops and all these different words for these different workshops that they have, reprogramming workshops, they bash meritocracy. And I've actually had professors bash, subtly, but still bash meritocracy because the game is rigged. Because those who have merit are the people that come from cultures who pursue and who value certain sorts of behavior, which then give you the that pull you up by the bootstraps of applying yourself in different ways, of finding certain things important to concentrate on. Right? So meritocracy, if it goes on too long, will how does that help those who are underserved? How do you bring those who are underserved up to speed if you don't stop the machine and then kind of help people to get up to speed? And so Evergreen is in one respect, they're trying to short circuit meritocracy by just giving credit and giving kudos to people who don't deserve it, but because they're underserved, they do deserve it more than those who come from cultures or races that they perceive as being ahead of the game, right? So on the one hand, meritocracy is admonished and, kind of hoity-toity'd at, which is cool because then you see that everybody gets the same grades, so you don't actually have to work hard. Like I showed you guys earlier, my entire senior project, it took a year and a quarter to write this 725-page novel. I got very, very little feedback. I mean, I got positive feedback, but very little feedback from my professors. So one of the things that is disparaged is meritocracy. On the other hand, what you hear a lot about, especially with the protesters and the group of protesters, is this thing called emotional labor, right? They're always whining about their emotional labor. And this is something that comes from intersectionality, comes from feminism, which is regurgitated Marxism. I don't care what all the titles and the history is. You just hear this term, emotional labor. These people are doing emotional labor. So what we have at Evergreen is these people disparaging actual labor, meritocracy, and then uplifting this emotional labor. And I was thinking about this while I was driving my thing going down this highway road called I-5. If you guys live in Washington or Oregon or California, you guys might know about this road because it goes through all those states. Anyways, so I was driving down I-5 and I was thinking, okay, so what they've done is that they've decoupled actual labor from the process of evaluation. We are not going to evaluate you based on your merit, based on how hard you work plus how intelligent you are. And that intelligence isn't just IQ. There's a bunch of different intelligences, but those are not looked at. What's looked at is your historical standing. What's looked at and what's apprised, first and foremost, is the cast of your skin and your gender and then your presentation of both of those things, right? So what you do is you take out actual labor. And the thing about actual labor, right, it sucks, right? And why does actual labor suck? Well, one, it's not pleasurable at all. It's actually quite painful. Two, it's boring as hell. You just have to work and work and work and work and work. Like if you want to write a novel, what you have to do is stare at a blank fucking screen for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. And then you have to go over and weed through all the crap that you put on that screen and then figure out, just wrestle with it. It's very lonely. It's not a good thing. There's a huge barrier to entry to awesome literature. I believe in that. Unless, well, I mean, there's these myths that writers tell themselves about being a genius, or like that I have an idea, and those are good things to keep you planted on the screen, but the only thing that really actually matters is your attention going into that which is not yet, and then making that which is out of that which is not yet. And that takes, if you want to be really beautiful, and if you want to create something of a very, very high caliber and a very high refinement, it takes a lot of attention. It takes a lot of merit in order to achieve anything, right? So once you take merit, once you take labor out of that, then how do you have feedback on what you are creating? Right? What you are creating no longer has that direct feedback of like, look at this thing that I did. Instead, now it's look at this thing that I am. Look at my identity. Like, look at that which I believe, not which I produce, but what I believe, right? And so the concept of emotional labor comes in because you still need labor. And that's the weird thing about it, because you're doing all this social justice work, right? You're going out, you're going to want to change the world, and people don't love you, and people do love you. And you're like, oh, people do love you. That's the feedback, but that feedback from other people, like you get applause. You're like, look at me, I'm doing this thing and nobody's done it. And I'm standing up for this righteous cause, right? And then people clap. That's your feedback, right? And that's inherently unsatisfying, right? So think of that. Look at me, I'm going to change the world, and people clap, all right? So that's one example. The other example is like, I have to dig a ditch, right? So who cares why you have to dig a ditch, but the ditch needs to be dug, and so you go out and you dig the ditch. And you go in there and you're like scooping dirt. Nobody's paying attention to you. Nobody's clapping you. Nobody's cheering you on. But when you look behind you, the ditch is being dug. And at the end of the day, you are exhausted. You don't have emotional exhaustion. You didn't do emotional labor. You did physical labor, right? And through that physical labor, you made a change in the physical environment. And you can go and you sit down and you're totally pooped out and you grab your little beer and you're like, oh, you feel horrible, right? You feel just, horrible. And yet, you're not dying. Like that feeling of exhaustion, of physical exhaustion, it's not that bad. I mean, it's painful and cramping when you wake up in the morning, you're gonna pay for it. But then you get to look at your ditch. And it's just a freaking ditch, right? Who cares about a freaking ditch? But you're gonna put a pipe in there, and so it's gonna be very useful. But you still get to look at that ditch. And that ditch persists. Whereas people paying attention to you, people saying, you go, you're doing great, you're changing the world, we love you, all these big signs and banners and stuff, they do not create a satisfying circuit, because people are changeable, because people will stop paying attention to you. People have to stop paying attention to you because, like it or not, you're just something to pay attention to, but there's other things that people have to pay attention to, just their gut and their desire for things, and something even better to pay attention to, right? It's not permanent. If you want to stay inside, if you want to perpetuate that which you've done for other people inside of their attention, all that emotional labor needs to have some sort of artistry. This is what culture is, right? And guess what? If you want to make a permanent ditch in the minds and the imaginations of other people, you're going to have to put in a lot of work to do that. And what Evergreen has done is taken that meritocracy out of the frame. And then what comes in is this stuff called emotional labor, right? and people proclaiming all this stuff. We're gonna stand up for this race and this demographic and that demographic without actually producing anything, right? Because production itself is part of a capitalist system. I don't know, I'm going off here. Production itself is part of a capitalistic system, and we don't want to be productive. We don't want to create things, or whatever excuse there is to not actually be productive. Rather than being productive in a real sense or in a permanent sense, you try to create social change, which, what is that? You try to make an impact in people's attention, in how they look at the world. But actually, if you look at Evergreen, they don't even want to do that, right? They just want people to think differently than they do. And basically, when I go through all the videos and I go through all the evidence, what I see is that they're basically trying to change white people to do something else than what white people have done, right? And so what they do with white culture, and this is not a racial argument. I'm not pro-white. I'm not a racial supremacist. I actually loathe that they've done this. And all I'm doing is reiterating and trying to explain what they've done. I'm trying to interpret what they've done. I'm trying to be a hermeneut with what I've seen happen so far with all this evidence. Is that what they do is they take white culture, they call it white culture, or Western culture, right? And then they take all the good things out of it, which, and not by good things, I don't mean all of the riches. What I mean by the good things, the permanent good things, are the values and the virtues, right? Such as meritocracy, such as civility. They hate civility. Such as all these different values, all these different behaviors, which one might suspect these behaviors led to the ascendancy of this culture, led to this culture being able to manipulate the environment in such a way as to reform it and refine it and order it in such a way that it works better and better and better and better. They take all those virtues out and they say, no, this whole system is evil. This whole thing is entirely built out of oppression, right? And what we're going to do is overthrow that. We're going to overthrow that, but we're going to completely deny all the virtues that got it to where it was, right? So when these people go up and gain power over the white people and gain power over the institutions, and they're teaching all these teachers at Evergreen, they're teaching all these public servants and these teachers to think in this way. And I will continue to give you guys evidence of that they're doing this. They're imprinting this value set on the people who control our government and educate our children to, one, despise white culture, right? Because white culture is ascendant, and two, to completely deny all the virtues and values that got the white people there, right? And to supplant that, they're creating this whole other virtue set, right? Such as, I don't know, what is that virtue set? I guess it's loosely based on compassion, but I think it's what Nietzsche talks about when he talks about pity, right? And Nietzsche hates pity. And I never really understood why people hate pity. And kind of now I understand why people hate pity. Why pity isn't good. Because it undermines the value inherent in the individual person to work hard and to value their life, right? So the interesting thing is that some of my viewers, maybe you work your ass off, right? You came from a poor family. You were not given everything in your life. You had to work very hard, and maybe you happen to be white. It's okay to be white, but at the same time, it's kind of not okay to be white. But anyways, let's just say you're white, and you came from the very bottom, and you worked and you worked and you worked and you worked to where you are now, right? And where you are now is nowhere near where you could be, right? You're not rich, you're not famous, you're not super successful, but every single thing that you've earned, even though it's way down here, it's not way up there, you've earned through effort. You've earned by applying yourself and overcoming difficulties and overcoming challenges. And so that which you do have, while it's not comparable to the most that you could have, is still owned by you. It's still valuable to you because you based it on your own work. You acquired it through your own effort. And so there was that direct exchange between you and that which you have, right? And when you take actual labor out of the equation and you supplant it with emotional labor, emotions are not going to give you the ownership over that which you gain, which happens to be attention. And as an artist, I can tell you this. I can tell you this, that every single product that I have, I only like it a little bit. And I go on to the next thing because I'm constantly restless. It's never enough. No matter how many cheers and likes and views and patron dollars I have, it's never going to be enough because it's ephemeral. Everything that I create is made out of light and sound and fancy shapes, right? And if I get you to laugh and if I get you to clap, that's great so I can do more, but it's not going to be enough. 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 It's not going to be enough because I have to constantly work higher. I cannot afford to be satisfied with any given success, right? I don't know where I got onto that tangent, but that's that. And that's what I was thinking about Evergreen. Here's some cats. Thanks for watching this video. Thanks for everything you give. I really do appreciate your attention. I really do. I would not be doing this if I wasn't getting attention for that. That being said, I spoke a lot about whiteness in this past video, and I use those phrases because that is the phrases that are being used at Evergreen. That is the phrases and the ideology and the framework that is being used through which, by that which I critique. I do not believe in teams. I love the Seahawks when they're ascendant. I love the Cowboys when they're ascendant. I love the Patriots when they're ascendant. I never really liked the San Francisco team. The Gold Miners or whatever. I can't even remember the 49ers. Fuck them. I don't even know why I hate them, but I hate them. Ugh. But no, seriously. This whole whiteness thing, it doesn't matter. We can really be free of that. We can really be free of that. We need to separate ourselves from the teams, right? The shirts and the skins, the blacks and the whites, all that stuff, it can totally be let go of. It really can. It really can. We can get beyond that. And it's not going to be easy. The real thing is the culture. It's not racially, I don't think it's anchored in race. I think it's anchored in different cultures and stuff, and how these different cultures interact with one another, and how we can use these different tools that these various different cultures have given rise to and have refined, how we can use those to work together at whatever it is that we're actually up to on this planet. That's what matters, right? So forgive me, one, for saying the word right over and over and over again, and two, for using the word white. That is completely arbitrary, and it needs to be taken out of our discourse. Actually, I think stupid people are using this. I really think stupid people are using race to forward their own selfish agenda and distracting from us from our true project. And that is that. And here is a little bit more cats.